We're finally here. These are the 10 best games ever made.
According to us.
No, it's objective.
It's Nick and Mike's top 100 games. But does anyone care what they have to say? Let's. I know I don't. Cause they may dab, they might scream, they may say some things that are plain wrong. Dab on it, dab on it. But they are dumb bing bongs. My teacher's better.
What's up, everybody? I'm Mike.
I'm Nick.
We are the Brothers Murph, and indeed, we have been working through our top 100 games of all
journey.
time. We are here at the finale, the 10-1, the best games ever. According to us and our experience, there are no better games than these 10. We'll see how much we agree on that 10, by the way.
Who knows?
We each have
Yeah.
our own list.
Right.
And so we're going to get right to it. We want to let everyone know that we are actually running a crowdfunding campaign to support this channel right now. It is ongoing. It'll be going for
great.
a week or two more. It's made bajillions of dollars, I'm sure.
Sure of it.
If you find any value in what we do, if you appreciate that and have a couple extra dollars to spare and don't mind supporting the channel, it's going to help pay for our new studio space, which you'll have seen some videos about probably by now.
Yeah, hopefully.
And getting better equipment so we can make even better videos for you. And we have a couple of games, including a personalized unmatched set featuring us as playable heroes, which is with permission from Restoration Games.
Yeah.
We also have a micro game with Beth Sobel art called Table Fables, which is you kind of in the different stories of the Big Bad Wolf and trying to swap cards around and stuff like that. So if you want to get those things as a little bit of a reward for yourself or an unhinged Christmas card from us, you can do all those things that are Kickstarter. Please check it out. We'd appreciate that.
Yeah.
And Nick, enough of that business, because it's top 10 time.
I'm so
Are
curious.
you ready to talk about your favorite games ever?
Mike's former number one was this 12. So yes, I'm so curious about your list.
Okay, so this is Mary right here, and Mary only gets treats if someone subscribes. So subscribe, hit the subscribe. We want to give. Oh! Someone just did it, Mary. Someone just did it. And then this is Pippin. Pippin only gets treats if someone likes. Yes, we're using our dogs for this. Oh, there's a like. Thank you. Oh, is there another sub over there? Oh, another sub. Oh, is there another like? Someone else liked it. Please subscribe.
They're just so cute.
They're just the best dogs
They're
ever.
the cutest dogs
Thank you
ever.
for giving our dogs treats.
the
They
best.
appreciate it. They're
They're
down
the best,
there,
and you're the best.
happy and fat. Nick, what is your number 10?
Okay. My number 10 is Le Grand Ha.
Ooh.
I guess the Deluxe Master Set. Le Grand Ha is my number 10. When we first played Le Grand Ha, when we got done, I was like, cool, that's a top 10 game of all time.
Yeah.
And guess what? It's number 10. I wasn't lying. You were lying.
You held to your word.
I spake the truth.
Yeah.
I love Le Grand Ha. Le Grand Ha is a game about farming, hence Le Grand Ha just means the farm. But this is a game with quad use cards. Every card you're getting has 4 uses because you're building out your farm. On your player board, on the left side of your farm, you can put out fields like olive fields, wheat fields, and grape fields. At the right side of your board, you can put out farm extensions, like more places to put things like pigs, just different kind of various things to upgrade your farm. You can allow you to draw more cards, things like that, make more deliveries, different farm upgrades. At the very top of your board, you can slot the card there, and that'll have some kind of contract that you can fulfill. Or you can put it at the bottom of your card where there's like little fingers, so you only see at the middle bottom of the card, and that is going to be an employee that you now have on your farm, and they're going to give you some kind of special ability. There are a billion cards in the game, and they are all unique. So all those employees have different abilities, and that alone, top 10 game of all time. It's just, I love multi-use cards. These ones are quad use because they're not cowards. Like other people use 2 uses for a card. Wow, coward.
It's definitely the hold my beer of multi-use
It is.
cards. You know?
And it is. Every card you're like, man. And you don't get that many cards in the game. You're probably getting like 10, 12, 15, somewhere in there the whole game. So you're
Max.
like, I really want this employee. But I also really need like grape fields. I could do this contract. That would be great for me too. There's all these different areas it pulls you into. And then you are then making these resources, and then you're going to be delivering them. You can deliver them to these contracts. You can also deliver them to the town. There's all these different, like essentially market spots around the town that will require certain things. Like this one requires a bunch of meat and a bunch of, wine and a bunch of wheat. And so, all right, you can kind of deliver things over there. That's going to give you even more bonuses, kind of ongoing things. There's just so much going on. The new version, the old version of Le Grand Ha is pretty much the same.
Yeah,
and
mechanically
actually, I
identical.
think looks really nice, but this new version is gorgeous. It's by Board and Dice. It's so pretty. There's also now a whole bunch of modules. We've played with a couple of them. They've all been really fun. I cannot wait to play with more of them. like I said, this game is just like, this game was like made for me. And when I played it, I was literally like, cool, that's top 10 game of all time.
Yeah,
and it's just like, yep.
Yeah, it's one of those games that we came into late, so it's like we knew it was this classic and people loved, and it's cool when they like really live up to that.
It's
reputation.
so good. And yeah, I mean, I could see it growing as we play it more, as we play more of these modules. I mean, it's just like, I love it that much. That's my number 10, Mikey.
Nice. My number 10 is a game that I have waxed poetic on many times, and a game that I think personifies elegance. This is Ginkopolis.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, I'm not surprised it's still in your top 10, yeah.
Yeah, this game is a city building game where you are hoping to place out tiles into the city that everyone is contributing to. And these tiles are going to have your resources on them, and they're going to create areas of connected colors, and you want to have more of your resources there than anybody else to be able to kind of claim those areas as your own for points and stuff. And this game, to me, is I say it's kind of like elegant and stuff because it does so many things with relatively few moving parts.
Yeah.
You are on each turn drafting cards. You're going to choose a card to play. Then the rest of your cards are going to get passed around to your opponents and stuff, and you're going to reveal that card. And you can basically do 3 types of actions, depending on the card you have and whether or not you add a tile to it. You can do an exploit action, which will just give you some resources or tiles or maybe points. You can urbanize, which will allow you to expand the city and make it wider. So there's basically all these letters around, and if you play the letter E and add a tile, you'll be able to put that tile wherever the E is and kind of expand the city. Or you can construct, which will allow you to build on top of existing tiles and build up onto the 2nd, 3rd, 4th level, which will give you more of your resources on that tile, which gives you better control. And also, every time you construct a card, the card that you used actually goes out in front of your player board, which will be things that will give you ongoing benefits and bonuses during the game, and also a ton of end game scoring conditions that you will now be able to score yourself because you've claimed that card. So in this game, everything comes down to these 3 colors. There's red, which is always going to be about resources and gaining you resources to be able to build better buildings. Yeah. There will be things that are blue, which are going to be tile-based and will be gaining you tiles. And then there's yellow buildings, which will be based on giving you in-game points. Everything revolves around those 3 colors. The types of buildings you build, if you're doing urbanize, you're going to get stuff based on what buildings are adjacent to you. And again, if it's a yellow building, it's going to give you points. If it's blue, it's going to give you tiles. Red will give you resources. And everything kind of flows around that, where you can only do 3 types of actions. There's only 3 colors of buildings. And with that, you're going to get a card drafting game, a city building game, an area control game. You're going to get a tableau engine building game from all those cards in front of you.
It's really nuts.
It's so cool, like the amount of things it does, but it's not so overcomplicated because there's only those 3 action types. And the types of in-game abilities will clearly show, hey, every time I do the urbanize action, get all this stuff that's listed. If it's a red card, you're getting a resource. If it's blue, you're getting a tile. If it's yellow, you're getting points. And like that is just so cool to me. It's so fun. There's so many fun things to think about, but with just like kind of easy pieces that are moving around. I really, really enjoy it. It's just feels like a magic trick every time I play it. And it plays quick to boot. That's great. So that's my number 10 is Ginkopolis.
Ooh. All right, let's get to number 9.
My number 9 is a game I can't convince Nick to try. Again. It's Brass Birmingham, baby.
Oh, wow. I forgot. Yeah. I wiped this game from my memory every time I can.
This is a game that every time I'm like, hey, man, you want to play Brass? Nick's like, yeah, I'm down for that. But then we never do.
I'm down to play it again.
No, you're not. You lie. You lie to the people. You lie to yourself.
It's true.
Brass Birmingham is an awesome game. It's obviously the number 1 ranked game, at least as the recording of this video on Board Game Geek.
Board Game Geek, yeah.
So it's well liked by everyone. Brass has been a game that's been around for quite a while, and Brass Birmingham is one of the, or I guess the newest iteration on that. There's also Brass Lancashire, which is the OG Brass, just kind of revamped. So Brass Birmingham is a game all about mooching. You're trying to mooch on other people's stuff. And that is something that once I figured that out, this game kind of opened up for me and I understood it, and then I really fell in love with it. So this is a game where you're in Birmingham and you are at the kind of the jump of the Industrial Revolution, where transportation networks are growing, cities are urbanizing and growing and stuff, and you are playing cards to build buildings, to build in the first half of the game canals that are connecting cities together. And then the second half of the game, you're building railways to connect cities together. You are delivering goods and beer and stuff around and trying to basically get your tiles that you put out there, these building tiles from your player board out onto the board and then get them upgraded.
Yep.
As they upgrade, they start to give you income and stuff, which means you have more money to play with each round and more points like that. In this game, when I say it's all about mooching, there's all this positive player interaction where I might build an ironworks, it produces some iron on that building, and I, as the owner of this, want that iron to go off the building so that it can flip and upgrade. And that's really cool. But Nick can use my iron from my building, maybe because you're going to get a benefit out of that, but it's like we both benefit because you remove the iron, which means you get to build the thing you're trying to do, and then I get to flip over my tile. If there's a bunch of buildings in a certain city, I can build, the connection points with the canals or rails, and then I'm going to get points based on how many flipped over tiles are in that city. So it's like I'm mooching because you're like, hey, you built this cool stuff. I own the railway over here, so if you want it to go places, you're going to have to pay me, And so there's all these ways that you can kind of try to mooch on what everyone else is doing.
Yeah.
If you produce beer, I can use that beer to build my own stuff. But again, it helps you out because you get to flip over tiles and stuff like that. That is such an interesting thing to me. One thing I've really fallen in love with recently is that idea of positive player interaction. It's not just me trying to undercut you. It might also undercut you because maybe you need those resources too, but you get something out of it. So it's like the whole idea of like, if I do this, am I going to benefit more than I'm helping you?
Yeah.
Like if you're going to get up 3 steps, am I going to at least get 5? And that's a really interesting thing to play with. So that's my number 9, Brass Birmingham. I think it's really cool.
Nice. My number 9, I talked about. I'll put you down, baby girl. I talked about the last 10, about how much I really am finding that I love deduction games. And one made it all the way to my top 10. This is the Search for Lost Species.
Yeah, I was thinking it might do that.
Yeah, I just love it. Search for Lost Species / the Search for Planet X, although I definitely like the Search for Lost Species more, but they're very similar games, so really you can kind of throw both in there. The Search for Lost Species is a game where you are looking for the lost species. You're doing that through logic deduction because there's going to be a map, and on the map, and one of the many spaces, the hexagonal spaces, one of those spaces is going to have the lost species. You're trying to figure out which one does. And you do that by deducing basically where everything else is because everything in the game works off of logic rules. So if you're looking for the lost species, there are different animals, and there's like a python, and the python is never next to any couscouses. The couscouses are like little marmots kind of thing, little marsupial looking things. So like if you find the python, you know that every space around it cannot have a couscous in it because the pythons are never next to a couscous. And then you find out the couscouses, there's 3 couscouses in the game, and they're always, each couscous is within 2 spaces of each other couscous. So if you find one, you know the other 2 are within 2 somewhere around that couscous. So you're like, okay, cool. The toads are next to 2 empty spaces. You have all these logic rules. So as you start to find some of these animals, and you can actively, you can put out a camera trap, and that will tell you what's in that space. It'll be like, oh, there's a python there. So you're like, okay, cool. I now know that. You can mark that off. You can mark off python every other spot. And you're like, okay, and as you start to learn these things, you start to be able to put together, well, if this is here, that means this thing can't be there. So that means it has to be over here because of various reasons. This game is app assisted, and so every single game is different. The game algorithmically makes up different, put everything everywhere. There's also various kind of research conferences that you get to go throughout the game that'll give everyone information about that specific game, and it'll be like couscouses. You get the example, couscouses and pythons are next to mountains. You're like, okay, so now we know that. So that kind of maybe eliminates some other stuff. And what I love about deduction games, I've found, it's just there's such a massive dopamine hit because in every deduction game at one point, but particularly in a game like this where there's so many different things that you're trying to find out, there's going to be a point where you have this puzzle, and all of a sudden one puzzle piece is going to go doosh in, and then because of that, there's going to be doosh, 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 doosh. There's always once in the game where I feel like you find out one piece of information.
Yeah.
And that then allows you to definitively know 4 different things. We're like, well, then that has to be here. And then if that's here, that means that has to be here. And it's so satisfying. I really, really love these games. I love the Search for Lost Species. One thing I've also found is I actually have really enjoyed Search for Lost Species competitively. I used to only play these games solo because the competitive nature of it I didn't really enjoy. But I've played it a lot competitively because I've been teaching a lot of people this game, and I've really enjoyed that too, which has been very, very nice. Because Search for Planet X, I really didn't really enjoy playing competitively. But man, I just love these games. I can see them growing. There's like a new one coming out about like aliens. I'm beginning at the absolute moment I can.
Yeah.
We play this like late at Search for Lost Species, like super late at night, and it's just so. I just love it. I don't know, man. I just love it so much. That's my number 9, Search for Lost Species. My number 8 was mentioned by Mike on last list, and this is It's a Wonderful World. You thought this would be a true crossover, not quite. This is in my top 10. This is my top 10 last time. I love this game. This is a drafting game where you're drafting out these cards. These cards are about just like kind of like different points in time, more or less. And you are drafting out this hand of cards. You'll get 7 cards. And then once everyone has drafted all of their cards, you will then choose whether or not you want to put those cards into some of those cards into production, which means you're going to put them on the table. You need to put resources on them to build them. Every card on the left side will have what resources it needs to be built. Or you can essentially chuck the card, recycle it, to get a resource. Every card will have some kind of resource on it that you'll get if you just chuck it out of the game. So that's what you're doing. And then you're basically trying to build out these cards, and these cards will give you points. They might give you points for like, for every green card you have, this card is worth like 2 points. And so it might be something like that. They also might give you some more production, because after everyone is done building and done recycling, basically they've used all of your cards, because you can't hold any cards over. Once you've used all your cards, then we'll go into the production phase, which means everything you've built that you've finished will go over kind of into your empire. And then you will produce resources in a very specific order. There's like gray, then black, then green, then yellow, then blue. I can't remember the exact order. But basically, you'll do gray first, which is like materials, the kind of easiest resource to get. The cool thing is so you'll look at all the cards you have to produce resources, you'll count up however many gray resources you get, and you'll get that many. The cool thing is those can immediately go onto cards. And then you might then finish those cards, and then that card will come into your empire. Let's say that new card that you just made has blue production on it. Well, blue hasn't produced yet, so it's still going to get to produce this round. I just find it to be so satisfying. Every time we play this game, I like it more. I just love it. It's just like, decide what you kind of want to go for. There's a lot of different kind of like strategies you can go for, a lot of different kind of points things you can go for, but you're dealing with the cards you're given because you're drafting. It's that kind of like, oh, I want to keep this card. I know Mike's going for a lot of blue stuff, so like I would want to make sure he does not get this big blue card.
Right.
So I'm going to keep this one and just recycle it for something else. Like, I don't know. I love it, love it, love it. Every time we play it, I like it more. I always want to play it. It plays good at 2. It plays good all the way up to 5. It's just outstanding. The expansion stuff is cool. There's like a campaign stuff to it that's like really cool apparently. It's good solo. It's just, yeah, I don't know. I just absolutely love It's a Wonderful World, and I just don't get tired of it. So it's number 8.
Nice. My number 8 is really there's a series of these games and stuff, so I'll talk about the one I've played the most. This is Gaia Project. You can also put in Age of Innovation, which we have
I was curious if you were going to separate those two on your list.
No, I mean, they're definitely different stuff. They're all based on Terra Mystica, though.
I'm not surprised this is this high, yeah.
And Gaia Project's the one I've played the most, so that's kind of the stand-in for these games in
If you had a
general.
gut check right now, which one do you think you're going to like the most?
I think Gaia Project.
Okay,
I think
still.
Gaia Project will stay the number 1. That or Age of Innovation.
Hi, Mary.
Yeah, and I think there's room enough for both in the world. So Gaia Project is based on Terra Mystica. These are games where you are going to be a certain faction, in this case a different alien faction, that are have a certain home world type that you can live on, that's habitable to you. And there's going to be a galaxy of different planets and stuff, and you're going to be kind of spreading out to different planets and things. But if you go to a planet that isn't your home type, you need to terraform it to your home type before you can start placing your different types of buildings out onto those spots. All of these games kind of focus on your player board, and as you put out certain types of buildings, you will produce income of like your ore, money, things like that, and you are going to be having to upgrade stuff. So if I have like my little base mine out on a thing, which is the first thing that goes onto a planet, I can then upgrade it to like a trading post. But when I do that, I take a trading post off of my board, but that mine goes back onto my board. So you're always kind of like dealing with the ebb and flow of like, well, I'm now losing a little bit of income to gain maybe some more money and stuff. So like, what resources do I need now? And kind of trying to balance that. Yeah. And you're trying to build essentially in such a way that you can maximize scoring, because each round, a certain type of thing, a certain type of action will be valuable. So if you build those mines, you might get 2 points. And so maybe in this round, I want to build a bunch of those to start, so I can get a bunch of those points right now. And then later rounds, different types of buildings might be the things that you get rewarded for building. There's also some end game stuff for things that you did throughout the whole game. So you're kind of trying to consider all of these things. And you're all a unique faction, which have your own abilities, your own kind of, your main buildings will do unlock different stuff for you to do that is unique, and things like that. So Gaia Project is fun because you're just trying to learn, like, how do I, like, really work what this faction does? Like, maybe they're really good at terraforming. It's cheaper for me to do that. So maybe I want to try to get out to a whole bunch of different types of planets and try to terraform them to mine, whereas that might be harder for somebody else. There's these Gaia projects you can do to terraform these Gaia planets. There's these tech tracks you can advance, and each tech track is, like, imperative. They're all like that thing where it's like every single tech track is amazing, and if you get to the top of it, it'll be really good for you. But you really can't do them all, so you have to pick and choose.
Of course.
But as much as you can, you want to be advancing up those. It's super duper fun. We love Age of Innovation as well, which is, in the Terra Mystica kind of fantasy world and stuff, but does some upgraded things and maybe feels a little closer to Gaia Project. But these games are super fun because it's just like you see everything at the start. You choose your faction, and you have to try to build that strategy based on what's going to be valuable in the game and when, and see how well you can do. So it's a really fun one. It can be tough with the resources. You have this power, which you can cycle to do extra stuff and take these actions. It's awesome. Love all those games. So number 8 is Gaia Project. My number 7 is a former number 1 game, and I still love it so much. This is Teotihuacan, baby.
You still love it. You still love it.
I do love Teotihuacan. It's awesome. I'm a fan of the T games from Board and Dice. This is a game where you have workers that are different values of dice and stuff. Basically, the higher the better. That's the more skilled they are. And you have this board with 8 action spots going around the edge of it. And on a turn, you're going to choose a die to move 1, 2, or 3 spaces clockwise around the board. And wherever you land, that'll be the action you take. And you're basically going to take a version of that action based on how many of your dice are at that location and what the lowest value is. You typically want to have a bunch of your dice all in one spot, as high a value as possible to get the most kind of resources if you're on a resource gaining space and things like that. And you are going to be then using these resources to build buildings, build the Great Pyramid kind of in the center of the city. You are trying to do things to advance up these 3 temple tracks, which are going to give you resources or cocoa or instant points. It might give you some end game scoring stuff. You're trying to get your workers leveled up to 5 and then up to 6, which means they die and they ascend, which makes you move up the Avenue of the Dead track, and they come back as a level 1 worker once again, but there's a lot of points to be gained and bonuses by going up that Avenue of the Dead. There's a million kind of things you can focus on to do. There's technologies you can get which give you discounts and bonuses for certain types of actions, and on and on and on. And there's been a bajillion expansions for this game as well. There's so much content. You can kind of...
Too much, honestly.
Yeah, but the cool thing is that they're all modules. So
exactly.
you can pick and choose some that you want. There's like ones where you get these player powers that are really beneficial and powerful, but they all have like a drawback.
Yes.
There's like a little negative to them as well.
Which I love.
You're like, well, I have to pay more cocoa now to go places, but I get this other thing that's cool, so maybe it's worth it, a lot of things like that. I just enjoy all of the things you can do in this game, the way you're trying to manage those resources, the locations and the order of like where those locations are from game to game will really change up a lot of stuff.
They really do.
There's a lot of things to consider there. It's just one I've really enjoyed playing a ton, and that's why it's on my list. Number 7, Teotihuacan.
Yeah, great game. My number 7 is a game that we've loved for a very, very long time. I think it's been mega out of print, unfortunately. This is going to be Shakespeare.
Yeah.
I still really love Shakespeare. I was kind of surprised it was still this high, but it's just like every time, when we were making our list, I was just like, man,
it's such a
I
good
just
game,
freaking love it, dude. Yeah, so Shakespeare is a game about Shakespeare. You are putting on a play, trying to get the queen to come to your play. That's who will be winning the game. Whoever has the most prestigious play, the queen will come see that one. And you are getting different actors and actresses. You're building out a set. You're getting costumes because your people need to have costumes to go out onto stage. And basically what you're doing is you're getting ready for more or less opening night. You can go up these 3 different tracks, which would be the different acts, like Act 1, Act 2, Act 3. So you can kind of choose to like focus on like 1 or 2 of those tracks. Like, we're going to not have a great opening or a great middle act, but the last act is going to be great. And that's what we're going to remember, right? Kind of a lot of different avenues you can go in this game. And this game is done through essentially action selection, but essentially is like bidding for actions. You have 5 action discs, and every round you're going to basically choose how many of those action discs you want, and then everyone's going to reveal it once. Whoever chose the least amount of actions is going to get to go first. Going first in this game is a really, really big deal.
Yes.
Mostly for things like set pieces and particularly costumes. Because costumes, you want your person to be in really nice costumes because then they're going to get you more prestige. But at the very, very least, they need to be dressed. They need to have a full costume or else they won't go on stage. So costumes particularly can be tough. So Shakespeare, I think without the expansion, would have dropped maybe even out of my top 100 because the game is a little too tight in terms of that, because you're like, well, I need to go first. I'm going to choose like 2 things to do. But then you only get to do 2 things.
You're
and you're
really
kind of like,
limited.
man, I can't actually do that much with this. So then they came out with the expansion called Shakespeare Backstage, which basically means now these backstage cards, which are essentially ways to kind of do all the stuff you do in the game, but various variants of ways to do them. But now any disc that you didn't bid for your main actions, you now get to use backstage. And that, in our opinion, kind of like completed the game. It felt like it was like 3/4 the way done, and then this kind of fully completed that game. It's the only kind of game that has an expansion that I would consider to be like essential. Like this is, you need to play Shakespeare well, you need to have the expansion.
Really gotta have it.
And it adds so much. And it's just now you're like, okay, I'm only going to do 2 things here because I'm going to do a whole bunch of stuff backstage. That's totally fine. It's just really, really fun. It's a very difficult game. It's very, you have to pay all your actors and actresses at the end of the game. Money is extremely tight. It's just very, very fun. I really like it. It's still a theme that just doesn't really come about much, like plays and theater and stuff is just not a very common theme. The art is incredible. This was really the first game we saw that had like art that made us go like, wow, games can be really, really pretty.
Super cool.
It's just cool. I love it to death. Shakespeare's still on here because I just love it. It's my number 7. My number 6 is a party game, and this is Fuji Flush.
Wow.
I'll say it right now. I think if you play it the right way, with the right group, in the right setting, this is the funnest game ever made.
That's fair.
In terms of
think that's
pure
fair.
fun, I think this is the most fun game
And that's
ever
what we're
made.
here for, right?
Yes,
It's for fun,
it is.
so.
It's not necessarily my favorite game. I'm not saying it's the greatest game ever made, but I'm saying in terms of pure fun, Fuji Flush, I have more fun playing this game with the right group in the right setting than any other game on the planet. I love this game. This game is a simple little card. This is not really a party game. It's a card game, a card kind of filler game. Where basically you're trying to get rid of your hand of cards. Your cards are going to be numbers 1 through like 20?
20 or something like that.
20,
yeah.
I think, is the highest. There are a lot more of like the 1s and 2s than there are of the 20. There's only like 1 of those. Basically what you're doing is your turn is you're going to play out a card that's like a 2. And then the next person will play out a card. If they play a card higher than yours, they're going to do what's called flushing you, which means your card is going to go to the discard pile and you're going to have to draw a card. That's not great because now you still have the same hand. You still have the same amount of cards. You're trying to get rid of your cards. But if they then can't beat you, they'll just put down a card and then you're still in it. And you're basically trying to get back around to you with no one flushing you. And that means you then will get to get rid of your card, but you don't have to draw a new one. So now you have less cards, which is great. That's what you're trying to do.
Yep.
So the whole fun part of this game is you can get into trains, and we call them choo-choo trains. Shouts out to Foster the Meeple for making this one, making me love this game so much.
Seriously, subscribe
So
to them, get a
basically,
card.
if I play a 2, it's 2. If Mike then also plays a 2, now we have 4.
We're a team.
If then Jamie plays a 2, now we have 6. Now granted, it's going to be hard to have a really high hand with 2s, but basically there are multiple 13s. If I play a 13, Mike would be like 13. Now we have 26.
Yeah.
And then again, if it gets back around to us, we get to turn in our cards and then we don't have to draw one. That's the kind of the point. But basically, the reason why this game is so fun is I don't generally like the whole you have to play this game this way or else you're doing it wrong. This game, I do think you have to play it this way or you're doing it wrong. You get on these choo-choo trains. So basically, you put down a 2, you go like, choo-choo train. Choo-choo train. And then someone else plays a 2 and you go, choo-choo train. 2. And you basically are trying to goad everyone into playing their 2s and stuff to get on this
It's
choo-choo
very
train.
cultish, very
And then
fast.
everyone's like, choo-choo train, screaming it. And then someone plays like an 8 and just flushes everyone. We're like, oh, come on. And it's just really, really fun. But then it gets ridiculous because you're like, 13 choo train, 13 choo train. And the thing is like you're doing this because sometimes it's like the highest number is like 30. And you're like, 6 choo train. And then someone else goes, 6 Chew Train, and you're like, yeah, let's go, and just like you get into these ridiculous where everyone is just like dying laughing because everyone's just like 12 Chew Train, 12 Chew, just trying to get it to come around. There's been times we were playing this at Gen Con last year. We were playing an 8-player game of this, and I'm sure everyone in that room hated us. We were in a giant hall, and we were being so loud because we were dying laughing and just screaming like 12 Chew Train, 12 Chew Train. It's just fun. If you play that way with like chew trains and you're just like trying to go, if you're just playing like, okay, you're flushed. It's like that. The game is going to be fine.
Yeah.
But it's like, this is one of those games that's so elevated by the experience of playing it with the right people, with the right setting, playing it the right way. It is in my top 10. I kept going up and up and up because I was like, no, when I am playing this in the right way, it is one of my favorite games. And we don't even have this game. Like, this is also the highest game that we don't own. I love Fuji Flush. I think it's the most fun game on the planet if you're playing it with the right group. And I love it so much.
Man, that's awesome, dude. I could not agree more. It's one of those ones, if you got the right people, it's going to be such a good time.
It's insane.
My number 6 is a game we've loved for a long time. It kind of uses that same thing with your player board where you're removing things to gain income. This is Clans of Caledonia.
Ooh.
This is an awesome
it's very
game where you are basically spending your money each round. You're one of the Scottish clans and stuff, and you have a little player ability as a result of that. And you are spending your money to put pieces out onto the board, like sheep and cows and things and wheat to start producing resources. You can also put out buildings that allow you to convert those basic resources into your upgraded resources. So if I have a cow, they're going to produce milk each round. Every cow I have will produce a milk, and when I take them off my player board, it'll show you exactly what's going to produce as a result. And then if I put like a little cheese factory out, I can turn 1 milk into 1 cheese for every cheese factory I have out. So you're doing these things ultimately to just fulfill contracts. That's really the game, is about putting stuff out.
It's like an economic game,
100%. You're just spending your money as wisely as you can, and money's pretty tight. And you're doing this to complete as many contracts as possible. These contracts are going to require mostly those upgraded goods and some of the basic ones like wool from sheep and stuff like that. And you can take work on 1 contract at a time. And as you complete them, you basically will be getting these import goods from elsewhere in the world. You get sugar, cotton, and tobacco and stuff, and it's going to move up those resources up this kind of track. And then at the end of the game, you're going to get points for each of those that you kind of made happen. And the kind of the rarer of those resources, the more points they'll be worth.
Like their market value to a degree.
Because they're more in demand and stuff. And you'll gain points like that. Similar to like a Gaia project, there's also a thing each round that will score at the end of the round. And it might be for like how many workers you have out, how many upgrades you've done, how many basic goods you have in your supply, things like that. And so you're trying to like also get those end of round scoring bonuses to get those in-game points, and the most of the points come at the end of the game and stuff like that, and you get rewarded for having the most contracts done. You can also increase your shipping level and be able to cross rivers and go across these locks and things, and you want to have as many of your separate areas but are still connected via your shipping level as possible to get points. And it's just really about gain those resources, get that income, use the market to buy and sell stuff to complete as many of those contracts as possible. The reasons we really like it is it's just like the player board is, first of all, it's not a super large game,
no, it's
physically
not
large, and it's a game that if it was made today would probably be 30% bigger. And it
It probably would
need to be.
It'd probably be humongous.
It doesn't need to be. Your player board has all your pieces, and as you remove them, it shows you exactly what they produce. So it's very easy to understand in terms of like, what do I gain by putting this piece out onto the board? What do I need to complete these contracts? It all makes sense, and you're just trying to figure out, like, how do I afford to do this? Because money does get tight. So it's a game that we really, really enjoy. We've heard word about an expansion coming and a reprint. I think as of this moment, still it's out of print, but we keep hearing that a campaign for a reprint is coming along with an expansion. And I'll be excited to see what that's about. But Clans of Caledonia needs no expansion. It's perfect already. It's number 6.
True crossover.
True crossover?
Think so.
1, 2, 3. Le Havre?
Yeah, Le Havre, baby.
Nice.
I knew it. I was like, it's gonna be number 5 for both of us.
It's such a 5 game.
It's such a 5. Such a 5.
Le Havre.
I knew it. I was like, I knew it's gonna be number 5. You hadn't mentioned it yet. I was like,
to be
definitely.
a true crossover somewhere in the top 10.
Yeah.
So number 5 for both of us is Le Havre.
Le Havre.
This is an Uwe Rosenberg game that is just awesome. It's
great.
A game where you have really kind of simple options on your turn.
Yes, you can do two things.
Yeah, you can either take, there's basically these resources that be getting put out on the board. You can take all of the resources of one type. So you take all the fish, for example, or you can move your worker. You have one worker, you can move them from one building to a different building, whether or not that's yours. You can move to your opponents and stuff, or to the towns. You just have to pay them for it.
Yep.
And make use of a building.
Yeah.
This is a resource conversion
that's really
kind
what
of
it
game,
is.
really, where you have a lot of these basic resources. All of them can upgrade to a better version of that resource. And you are trying to get these resources to build buildings, to upgrade stuff, to trade them away for money, and everything is kind of comes down to your wealth in this game. And that's what so you want everything to kind of convert to be as valuable as possible.
Yeah, it's just that's what it is. You're basically shipping these things, converting these things, trying to make them all worth as much as possible. You have to feed your people in this game. That's going to get progressively, hopefully, easier throughout the game. But it is something you always. It's one of those Uwe games where it's like it's something you have to actively think about. It's not like kind of like passive, like other games where it's kind of like, oh yeah, it's not too hard to feed your people. This one, you have to really be paying attention to it. Yeah, it's just so good. There are the same kind of buildings in every single game, but then there's also these special buildings that come out periodically through the game. If you get the game now, it's going to have, there's been like many promos and all this stuff for this game. So it has all of these special buildings, of which there's like a ton of them. And you're only ever using like 6 in the game. And those like really change up the game a lot because they're going to be like, oh, you now get to do this, turn this into this. You're like, oh, wow, that's crazy for this one. Okay. And it's just simple. It's either like you're going to move your boat, you're going to seed the kind of depots, and then you can either take a pile of stuff or activate a building. Both of those options are great. You're like, oh, I can do this just giant pile of wood. Great. I will use that at some point for something. Awesome. Oh, I'm going to activate this building. Great. Like, it's so simple. You can do 2 things. That's it. And even then, the cards themselves, the buildings, are pretty self-explanatory. It's like, oh, you can turn this and this. It's going to take this much fuel. And then on each, like, piece, like the wood piece or whatever, it tells you how much fuel, if you discard that gives you. So you're like, okay, it's like, it's all very well laid out. It's super simple. And I don't know, there's just like, you talked about this with Ginkopolis, I believe, last list, and just like talking about, it's just an elegant game in my opinion. Because again, there's not much you can do, but those choices are still great, and I just absolutely love this game.
Yeah, I agree. That's why it's our number 5. Not right now, but I'm calling one more true crossover. Not yet.
I don't think so.
No? All right, what's your number 4 then? Prove me wrong.
My number 4 is a game about build a zoo.
Ooh,
this is Ark Nova.
Nice.
Yeah, this one went up way high for me. I love Ark Nova. I just love it. It's so much fun. This is a game where you're building out a zoo.
Awesome, man.
Your zoos, you're going to be doing that through getting these cards. These cards are going to have various animals on them for the most part. And those animals are going to give you appeal, and they're also going to give you conservation, but mostly appeal. It's basically people wanting to come to your zoo to go see the hippos, to go see the lions or whatever. And they're also trying to get conservation. You'll do that mostly by fulfilling these conservation projects, which will be like, hey, you need to have a certain amount of animals from Asia. And like, boom, or you need to release an African animal into the wild. So all these kind of controversy.
Hopefully not. That's what we're trying to get away from that with zoos.
Conservation is what I'm trying to say. So basically you have an appeal track and a conservation track. You're trying to cross those 2 tracks. That's what's going to end out the game. And conservation is worth more than appeal. And I really like that. I love the fact that like all good zoos nowadays are very focused on conservation, which is great. Because as we continue to change the world, because we're humans, we need to make sure, we're making it habitable for other animals as well, And I love that zoos are really focusing on that. And this game focuses on that as well. But this game is great. This game, I'll tell you, like, one of the main criticisms people give for this game is that it doesn't do anything new, right? Like the crossing the tracks is from Rajas and Ganges. A lot of the card play, it has a lot of these different tags. That's very much from like Terraforming Mars. The action selection system is from Civilization New Dawn or whatever. Yeah. And it's like, yeah, this is like, to me, a perfect encapsulation of what we've said for a long time. Is like, a game doesn't need to do anything new. It just needs to do the thing it's trying to do really well. You can reuse stuff. One thing I love about board games is how much they borrow from other games.
Yeah.
I think it's a great collaborative thing in board games. We're like, hey, I really like this one thing from this game I love. I'm going to put it in my game. I think that's a great thing. And it goes to show that, like, yeah, sure, Ark Nova doesn't bring anything new. Nothing at all is like a new concept, but it does it so well.
Yeah.
And that's what you should need. That's what you should be really striving to do. If you can think of something completely new, great. That's awesome, but you don't have to. And I think Ark Nova is a great encapsulation of that. I love Ark Nova. I just never get tired of it. We got the expansion. The expansion's great, but even just the base game, it's just like there's so many of these cards that like it's always going to be different, you know, and just like, oh, I'm going to build my zoo. I'm going to get a whole bunch of animals from like Australia this time and just work that engine. Let's see what goes there. I just think it's great. Ark Nova is my number 4.
Nicely done, sir. My number 4 was mentioned by you previously. There's another big T game called Tuansuyu, the Inca Empire.
Dang, that's super high. Let's go.
I love it so much.
Me too. I was mine was too low. I will tell you right now, it was too low.
Well, you know, recency and stuff.
Yeah.
I think it was in my top 10 last time, but a little lower. So Tuansuyu is another big T game where you are going to be placing workers onto this board that to be fair, is overwhelming looking at first, and then you kind of once you figure out what you're doing, it's a little less so. But there's all these worker placement spots that have these different symbols. You're going to be playing a god card, which will give you a certain symbol, you know, shape and stuff, and then you can play onto
Fine, I'll pick you up.
one of those spots that matches that symbol. So you don't actually have access to the whole board truly at a time.
No, you really don't.
And when you place that down, you're going to be able to do tasks. There's basically going to be 3 action types surrounding that worker placement spot, and you're going to get to do one of them depending on where you place, what worker type you use. You might be able to do 2 or 3 or even 4, you know, kind of loop around and do the same task multiple times. So you're really trying to do that and get everything as much as you can out of every single turn. These things are going to be things like gaining resources like potatoes and stone, and gold. You can build buildings, which are going to give you maybe like a little bit of a production income, or a little like one-time use, flip it down kind of thing, and you have to refresh it. There's these tapestries you can get where you're going to be kind of building this as long of a tapestry of different symbols as possible, so it's kind of a set collection element. You are going out and you know, conquering distant lands and stuff like that, a whole bunch of things like that. So it's just one of those games that I enjoy this in a game where there's all these paths that you can kind of take, different things to explore, different, you know, ways to gain your main hits of points and things. And this game does it really well, where you're putting out these workers, and there's also these kind of like action follow turns you can do with your priest at the top of the hill, because the whole board is representing this kind of giant hill. And at the top, you have your little priests that are moving around to these different kind of main super actions, where if I take it, everyone else will get to follow and do a lesser version of that action as well. So I think that's cool. Anytime it incorporates some of that element is neat. There's just a lot of fun stuff and a lot of ways to work things. The color of worker that you place will often give you like a little benefit. So there's just a lot of fun things to consider.
Yeah, there's so much going on.
Yeah, and that makes it, you know, kind of heavy and overwhelming. But once you get into it and can start to figure out how to work those things, I think it's just really, there's just a lot to munch on, which is fun. So that's my number 4 is Tuansuyu.
Number 3?
My number 3 was mentioned by you before. So I don't think we're going to have a true crossover after all. But that's okay. This is Kanban EV.
That's number 3?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought that was going to be your number 1. What's your number 1 then?
Who knows?
Oh, wow. I really thought this. I thought this was going to be your number 1.
Baby.
What's your number 2 and 1?
This is this is for you to figure out. Kanban, what have I not mentioned? Kanban EV is a game where you're working in a car factory making electric vehicles. And so you're going around to different departments each day. Each round is a day of work, and you have to move to a different department than where you were working the day before. And you are trying to build cars, test cars, get car parts, upgrade different, you know, parts on vehicles, all sorts of things like that. And the things we love about this is another big, heavy game from Metal Lacerda. This game is very linear in terms of, like, it makes sense thematically, and the mechanisms are well integrated. Where it's like, okay, I need to make a car. It's like, well, I should probably have a design for what I want that car to look like first. Once I have that, I might have an idea of like what car parts I need. Let me go make sure I get some car parts. Let me go to the assembly line and make a car. And then now it's out on the test track, let me like make sure it works well and test it. So it all kind of makes sense in terms of like that workflow of like the things that you're trying to do. And the different departments are well laid out. Like one of the departments helps you get those designs. One gives you car parts. One assembles cars and stuff like that. And you're trying to balance taking those actions. You're also working on training in each of these areas, and you can move up these training tracks and get certified. And as you get certified, you start getting access to a different type of action, a better action from that same department and stuff. So as you are now a more skilled worker, you're also trying to stay ahead of your opponents in the training, because you have Sandra, who's your supervisor, who's going around and basically checking up on everyone's progress. Like, hey, have you been keeping up with your training? Do you have a bunch of designs? You've been here at the design area, but I don't see any evidence of you working, and so you can get punished and stuff by that, which I think is kind of cool. And then you can have these end of week scorings, and then these meetings that you'll hold. So again, the whole thing is that you're an employee at a factory, and so it really lives in that theme. And you go to have these meetings, and it's basically objective scoring, where it's like, hey, you're going to get 3 points for every red car you have, and you're using these speech bubbles, which is basically you talking at the meeting and stuff, which I think is just kind of hilarious. And you're doing all these things to kind of score as many points as possible. This is just a great game that, again, takes something that's really heavy. There's a lot of different things to consider, but because of the nature of the linear fashion of a factory and something like making cars, I think it helps keep this game a little more accessible for how heavy it is, and really fun to play. So I love the look of it. It just looks like clean and nice.
Yeah, the art's outstanding.
The resources can be tight and stuff, but there's a lot of ways to work what you're trying to do. There's a lot of different paths to scoring and stuff. I really love this game so much. It's my favorite Lacerda game, obviously, by virtue of this list.
Yeah, I thought that was gonna be your number one. I was
quite close.
Wrong.
Top three. It's on the pedestal, man. It's on the podium there. So
I think it might.
What's your number 3, man?
My number 3 is Viticulture.
Number 3?
Yeah, it is no longer my number 1.
I thought it'd be 1 or maybe 2, but
No,
3 was.
It's number
what the heck
3.
is
It's
your
dropped
2-1?
insanely low. Number 3. So if you don't know, Viticulture has been my number 1 game for 6 years.
Sorry, that's my shock. The point, Nick, have you ever wavered from Viticulture?
Once we had played it, no. Wow. Yeah, once. I mean, the first time we played it, I was like, "That's my favorite game."
This is a moment, right?
That's a moment. Yeah.
Wait, so what's your?
I love Viticulture. I really do love Viticulture. I love it to death. It's one of my favorite games. It was previously my number 1. I love it. This is a game about running your own vineyard, and you are going through different seasons. In the base game, it's just summer and winter. In the expansion, you should always play the Tuscany expansion. It just makes the game so much better.
Definitely.
You're going through spring, summer, fall, and then winter. You are doing worker placement. Once you place a worker into a season, when you move into the next season, you don't get them back. So there's always that interesting decision space of I do a whole bunch of stuff in spring and summer, but they're going to have nothing for fall and winter.
Right.
You're getting these visitor cards, which allow you to kind of break a lot of the different rules. You're planting vines. You're then harvesting those vines into grapes. You're then squishing those grapes into juice, and then aging that juice into wine, and then having your wine kind of age from there. I really love this game. I've just always found this game to be lovely and fascinating. I love worker placement. It's still probably my favorite mechanic of all the board game mechanics. I still really love worker placement games. And this one I've always liked. It's it's linear. It's okay, because you're trying to fulfill these wine orders. That's going to be your main hit of points. You're okay, so this wine order calls for a level 8 red wine. So you're okay, so I need to make sure I get some vines that are going to give me red grapes. I then need to plant those vines. I then need to harvest those grapes. I need to squish those grapes into juice. I then need to put them into my cellar as wine and then age it up to level 8 so I can fulfill this wine order. It's very linear. I find it's very easy to teach. It looks great. I love all the visitor cards. The expansion stuff is great. I don't know. It's just I've always been charmed by this game. I've always loved it. From the moment I first saw it, even before I'd even played it, I was like, that's going to be one of my favorite games. Yep. And it still is. It's number 3. I mean, it's not like it's dropped too far. Yeah. But it is no longer my number 1. At least as of right now. Who knows? Next year it might jump back up.
It's far enough, man.
Viticulture is my number 3, former number 1. Both of our former number 1s are no longer. Wow, it's
so
crazy.
Much changed, man.
So that's my number 3, Viticulture. Let's get number 2. My number 2 was mentioned by Mike, and this is Clans of Caledonia.
Okay.
I haven't mentioned it yet.
Right. I was trying to think what they were going to be. That makes sense. Okay.
Yeah.
Right.
Clans of Caledonia is my number 2. Mike just talked about everything Mike said is the same for me. I love it. I love the fact that it's again, you're in the kind of Scottish Highland, but it's ultimately an economic game, which I think is just kind of fun. It's laid out so well. Like I said, your player board tells you everything you need to know. It's of a very reasonable size. Despite it being like not a huge game, the production value is still really good. Like your little wooden pieces are like great. They're like not just like, they're not just like cubes. They have like little bread factories shaped like a little piece of bread. It's just like, it's just great. I absolutely love this game. I'm interested in whatever this expansion is. I don't really think it needs it, but like I'm interested in what it is.
I'll find out.
So yeah. My number 2 is Clans Caledonia. I won't go any more into it, but I absolutely love it. It's my number 2.
Nice. My number 2 was mentioned by you a while back. Now, I still love me some Uwe Rosenberg, all right?
Oh,
the second
wow.
entry in this top 10 is going to be a Randenburger Canal.
What is your number 1?
Now you'll never guess. Jenga. A Randenburger Canal is an awesome worker
so
placement 1 or 2 player game from Uwe Rosenberg. That is, as you mentioned before, banana yellow. It's very yellow. This is a game where you are building structures, which are cards. And these structures are going to give you the ability to exchange resources for points or into different resources, or you gain different benefits and stuff based on the routes that are around the card. So in between the 16 slots where you have cards, there are spaces to put these different routes. They are going to be pathways, roads, canals, and railways. And the cards will largely be interested in the types of routes that surround them. So you might want to have one that wants to have a bunch of canals. The more canals, the better, because for every canal, you're going to get $2 or something when that card activates. That's the other area where this game really hinges on and focuses, is on the timing of everything. Because if I buy, I pay the resources to build a structure, I put that card down somewhere on my board. If that card is not fully surrounded by routes, it won't activate. It won't do anything. It'll be worth points at the end of the game, but otherwise it's useless. So you need to then build those routes around, and a second that it's fully surrounded, then that card triggers its ability, where again, you can gain resources, trade resources, whatever the card says it'll do, and so it's kind of laid out right there for you. So it's all about that timing. Do I, kind of pre-build the routes out so that when I have a card, I can put it down in a fully surrounded space so it instantly activates? Do I try to put 2 structures next to each other that both want like railways so I can make sure I'm benefiting both cards? Where you place, when things trigger their abilities and all that really are where you spend a lot of your brain power. I really enjoy just that aspect, the timing aspect. I think it's really cool. It's really different. It does kind of standard. The worker placement spots are really basic. It's like gain some resources or build a card or stuff like that. So you spend all your time and energy on figuring out how and when and where to activate your buildings and place them, and how you build your board as efficiently and effectively as possible. I think it's so fun. It works fantastically solo.
It's the same game. I mean, really, more or less, it's like...
Same game. Yeah, there's nothing really different really about it.
You're just solving a puzzle. I mean, you're just solving an efficiency puzzle.
Solving efficiency puzzles. I think it's really fantastic. There will be a version that becomes more widely available at some point, maybe this year or next, just called Canal. It's the same game, but it'll have an artistic upgrade and be, again, widely available. It's not really widely available now.
We'll keep both.
I'm going to get both. I'm keeping the original because then you can be like, ooh, we have the original German, you see.
But then we can both solo it. Like, I'll keep one of my plays.
Oh, that's actually smart. Yeah, so that's my number 2 is a Randenburger Canal. Love it so much. Love me some Uwe. There's 2 Uves in this list, in fact. So there you go. That's my number 2. But what is our number 1?
Oh my gosh, we're here.
Though?
Okay. I'm trying to think of like what Mike has
you
not
gotta guess?
Because when it wasn't Kanban, I was like, okay, maybe it's a Randenburger Canal, but then that's not it. So I'm trying to think of games. There's one game I can think of that I don't think you've mentioned. If this is your number 1, I will poop my pants.
I will let you make a guess then.
No, I want you to say it.
You don't want to guess?
Is it?
What's your guess?
Have you mentioned Wayfarers?
I have not mentioned Wayfarers.
No, my gosh, I'm gonna poop my pants. Are you serious?
Now you have to do it. Wayfarers of the South Tigris is my number 1 game of all time. Well, you parsed it out, though. Nice.
Well, I was like, what have you not mentioned? What have you not mentioned? What have you not mentioned? I was going through my list. I saw Wayfarers, and I was like, wait, has Mike not mentioned Wayfarers? He's like, he hasn't. I was like, there's no way it's not in your top 100.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm like, get out of here.
It's my favorite Garphill game. It's my favorite game, period.
Wow.
So
I mean, I love Wayfarers, but
Yeah.
wow. It's my favorite Garphill game too, but holy crap, you're number one.
It's so awesome. So Wayfarers of the South Tigris
Let's go, Chevy.
is a worker placement, dice placement kind of combo game where you are charting the lands, the seas, and the night sky above you as you're trying to kind of figure out, like, what is this Earth made of? You know, in terms of, like, what's where and all that.
Cheese!
Yeah. And you are doing this through building just a big, wide tableau of cards, really, that are kind of extending out from the left and the right of your player board. You know, to the left will be your land cards, to the right will be all of your water cards, and then your space cards will go above those cards and stuff, because as you're walking, you take a look up and chart the stars above you and stuff. The reason I love this game so much is it is a big, wide sandbox of a game.
Yep.
And I just enjoy the exploration element of board games. That's why I mean, outside of the fact that this is our job and stuff, that's why we like to learn new games all the time, because I like discovery, I like exploring new things. And in a game like Wayfarers, there are so many types of cards you can get. You can focus on doing only land cards this game and try to see, like, what synergies and combos can you build out from those vistas and those cities and stuff. Maybe I want to go a bunch of water cards. Maybe I want to do a blend of everything or really just hit a bunch of space cards to try to do. A lot of the space cards are going to be like end game scoring kind of things. And maybe I can try to really capitalize on those. And finding your way to synergies and combos from game to game is always interesting to me. It always, your tableau always comes out different. It'll never be the same.
No.
These vistas will give you a bonus every time you get a certain type of card. So, you know, maybe I largely want to focus on building harbors this game because I get this other benefit from that. And on and on and on. You can place out some workers, which are kind of this shared resource where I'll put a worker out onto the central board, but then they go onto cards themselves and activate the space that's adjacent to them. But then you might get that card, and if there's a worker on it, hey, that's your worker now. So there's this like weird closed economy of workers. And you also have your dice, which go onto your player board and onto the various cards you've put into play, and those are going to be kind of unique to you. There's this caravan in the center of your board where you can add tiles so that the values of dice don't inherently have any values other than the 1s and 6s to start the game. So now my number 2 might have like a ship that's put in my caravan. So if I use a 2, I basically am considered to have a boat. So I might be able to activate like one of my harbors and things like that. So there's all sorts of ways to work. Whatever you're going for, you can build a little puzzle engine for yourself to kind of fuel that thing. And it's really seemingly endless in terms of the different synergies you can build, the different bonuses you can build. There's townsfolk, which can get added to cards, which means I might get a little bit more out of what this card can do than previously. There's a bunch of stuff. And you're ultimately in the pursuit of knowledge, which I really like.
Yeah,
you are journaling back to Baghdad, like all of the things that you're finding, and that kind of progresses the game as you move your little marker through this journal, the center of the board, which will require you to have certain tags, which again are the types of cards you put into play and stuff like that. So you have to kind of figure out your map through that journal. On and on and on. There's just a seemingly, again, an infinite amount of ways to figure out ways to score points and stuff in this game.
It's
I like
very
it
good.
every single time. It is kind of, to your point, a little bit of a hard teach because there's so much stuff to do.
Yes.
But I think it's so fun because you have this vast landscape
Well, like
in
your
front of you.
previous number 1 was Feast for Odin, which is also a giant sandbox game. Like,
it's
you like
clearly-
sandboxes. Yeah,
I like a big
for
sandbox
sure.
game. I want to be able to try, like, what happens if I do this thing over here?
exactly.
Is that cool? What if I do this thing over here and I could try a different thing every single time? Really, really love it. And so, yeah, I just, when it came down to brass tacks, I guess I swapped one kind of sandbox game for another.
Yeah, but hey,
And Wayfarers
that's
is my number
awesome.
1.
Wow, that's cool.
What you got, bro?
Do you have an idea what it is?
I don't. I think so, but I don't know what's been mentioned or not, man.
Well, what do you think it is?
Okay,
Give it a shot.
have you mentioned Prodigal's Club?
I haven't.
You haven't.
I haven't.
So it's your number 1 because it's always
It's
right
my
there.
102.
It's your 110.
No, my number 1 is Prodigal's
Is it your
Club.
number 1? Okay.
Yes, it is the number 1.
I feel like you've wanted to make this your number 1
To
and
some
haven't
degree,
yet.
To some degree,
So it seems like an inevitability that it would be
it's
here.
it's usually my top 5. I think for like 2 or 3 of these lists now,
So
it's
way
been
up there.
in my top 5 or my top 10 at the very, very least. And yeah, when it came down to brass tacks, I was just like, I love it. It's my favorite game. At least as of right now, it's my favorite game. This is also like, we just recently played it twice. We showed it to our friends Crook and Jimmy, and then I played again with like Jeff and Jamie when I was in Nova Scotia, and like they loved it. And so it's like playing it recently, and especially playing with Jeff and Jamie, who like loved the game. Like Jamie was saying, like it might end up being in her top 10. Playing it with people who also like loved it that much was just like, that's right. Like I love it this much, you know. And
it
so
reminds you of the joy that it brings.
Yeah, and just kind of having to teach it recently and play it recently was just. I always know how much I love it because it's always in my top 5. But like really reminded me, like, oh yeah. And then when I was doing my list, it just kept being like, no, I like Prodigal's Club more. I like Prodigal's Club more. And then it ended up being number 1. And I love Prodigal's Club. Prodigal's Club is a game where you're basically trying to be the biggest meanie douchebag on the planet, which is a hilarious theme to me.
You have strange goals in life.
Yeah, you're just like it's honestly it's like it's a situation where like there's a lot of rich people out there who just like basically create controversies because I think they're bored.
Yeah.
You know, I think that's your situation here where you're just like rich. So you're just like, I'm just going to try and like lose all my money, lose all my friends, and lose an election. That's what you're trying to do in the game. The game is essentially 3 mini games that kind of coalesce into one big game. And again, you're trying to lose your money, lose your friends, lose an election. Those are going to be your 3 scores for the game. Whatever your highest of those 3 scores, and a high score is bad, you don't want that, because that means you have a lot of friends still. Whatever your highest score of the 3, that's your score for the game. So you cannot just focus on one of the things. You have to try and do them all as well as possible.
Yep.
So it's just, this is one of those games that's like a bit of a heavier game, but has got a lot of going on, a lot of like decision spaces, like a lot of different things you can do, but just kind of is really carried through that theme because you are just like, you have this really nice house and you're going to trade it in for like a really crappy horse. And then later you're going to sell that horse, but you're going to try and sell it at a discount because you are trying to blow as much money as you possibly can. You are going to go to like the social aspect and you're going to play this card that is like you being super rude at dinner. You're just making like whatever you want. It's like in this like high society place. People are just like, oh, that man is horrible. And you're losing friends and your social circle is like going down and down and down. You can go to like Hyde Park and just be like screaming about communism or whatever. People are like, I don't really like that. And so then they'll start losing votes. There's just like all these different things and it just coalesces into this like worker placement, which I love, kind of tableau building, which I love. You're activating these cards, and then it just gets carried through with this ridiculous theme that just makes no sense, but I love it. It's just like, it's just fun. And every time I play it, I'm reminded of how much I love it. And when I was doing my list, I was just like, it's just my favorite. Like I said, I think, like, I'm not saying I was lying in my previous list when Viticulture is my number 1, but like you're saying, like, I feel like you've wanted to make this your number 1 for a while. And I kind of maybe have always wanted to make it my number 1, but didn't for whatever reason. And screw that, it's my number 1, damn it. At least for right now, it is. Boom! Prodigal's Club is my favorite game in the world. I just absolutely love it. I love it. I can never get tired of it. Yeah, so that's it.
That's the list.
That's it.
That is 100 games that we quite enjoy. We want to know what your games are, though. We're, of course, just 2 people on the internet talking about the stuff that we love, but we want to hear what you love because everyone has different tastes in games, and they're all super valid. And so we want you to share your favorite games in the comments below. Yeah. Let's get a big old list so that people can come here and see all sorts of awesome recommendations. Thank you so much for joining us on this journey. Again, if you found value in this list of videos or anything that we do, the challenges, whatever silly stuff, you want to see us continue to do that as full of clip as possible, we do have a crowdfunding campaign going on right now. And you can support it. You can get yourself a little bit of a game or a fun Christmas card, play some games with us, whatever you want, but all that support helps us kind of upgrade our equipment and make everything as top-notch as we possibly can for you. And we are super duper grateful for that. Have I missed anything, Nick?
I don't think so.
Did you have fun?
I did.
Are you tired?
Yes.
Our voices are tired. Thank you so much for joining us for all these videos. Please like and subscribe. Our dogs are very happy with the treats that you gave them earlier. Thank you so much for that. And I guess we will catch y'all next year for another Top 100. But for now, we will say goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you so much for watching our 10 to 1. We made it, y'all. We made it all the way through the top 100. If this is the only segment of the top 100 you watch, make sure to go back and watch the rest. They'll be on the right side of your screen there. Big shout out to our channel sponsors, Restoration Games, Board Game Geek, and Garphill Games. We really, really appreciate y'all for watching. Have a great one.